What do you get when you mix a health coach and a wellness coach mixed with a lot of curiosity? You get two people who ask a lot of questions about health and wellness issues. Today, we ask the question, what is generational trauma and what can we do about it?
We will begin with a recap and musings about our call to actions for the week. Then we will tell you about what we are loving this week. We will end with a new call to action for the week, and we invite you to do the same. So let's get started as we ask.
Wait, what?
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Kamna.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. Not gonna lie to you. I mean, I shouldn't be. It's only 2:30 in the afternoon when we're recording today, but I'm tired. So,
It's been across the board for everybody we've talked to,
mhm,
almost. It's
mhm.
been a rough week.
It really has. And I don't, I guess I was for at a moment in this week just being so selfish and looking at myself. But then when you pointed it out to me, you're like, no, but this person has and this person. And yeah, it was like a cosmic shift or something that everybody that we talked to was had a rough couple days.
Yeah, it was a rough week. And I know we need those rough weeks to really appreciate the other side of it, but
Mhm.
it's hard when you're going through it for sure.
Yeah. I will say though, on a very selfish note, when you pointed it out, I was like, oh, I kind of felt like, oh, thank God it's not just me. Is that terrible that I felt that way?
No, I think what's the expression misery loves company? When we feel
Yeah.
like we're not alone, it just gives us more strength.
I just was like, oh, I'm kind of so relieved that I wasn't the only one that like
Yeah.
had that this week. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So, but anyway, well, let me go into my week here while
Yes,
I'm talking
please.
right now about
Yes.
me being so selfish. My call to action was to get lentils and I didn't. I honestly don't know why. I don't think I even thought of them one time this week. It just didn't
I,
even come into my head.
it's
So
okay.
yeah, I mean, I even put it on my list and I don't think I looked at I might have like zoomed right over it. I don't know what happened. I can't even make up a lie.
It's
So
okay
no,
though.
I didn't do mine.
But I'm not going to chide you for it because I think we all have these. I mean, when you hear about my report, you'll be like, "Oh, okay." But I want to say something to you about the selfish word.
Oh, you don't like it?
It's not that I don't like it. I think sometimes people are selfish. I would not label you as selfish ever. Not
Well,
even for
that's
a
because you're my
second.
friend.
No, I'm very honest. I would tell you if you were. I think
Maybe
if
you were.
when a person feels bad about
Hmm.
whatever's happening in their world, in their life, it is important to take a minute and really think about yourself and how it's affecting you and how to recoup and how to re-strategize. I don't think that's selfish. I think that's important.
Okay. I will take that and run with it.
We need to do that. We need to be introspective
Then maybe we
sometimes.
need a word for that.
Okay, what's
And
the
maybe there
word?
is, I don't know, maybe there is a word that I don't know, but that moment when you feel like, is it pity?
No, no,
Do I
no,
want,
no.
no, okay, then I don't know.
You want what's the word? When you have like what you said, when you have other people who are kind of also in a bad way and you get
Yeah.
support, not from them being in a bad way, but you get support for I'm not the only one suffering and struggling
Yeah.
and I get strength from seeing other people working through their issues.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
There's got to be a
Um,
word for it.
there has to be. So our smart listeners will tell us.
Somebody tell us what the word is that
Yes.
we're looking for. So what about
Okay.
you though? Yeah.
Yeah. It was mostly a fail.
What was
So
your call
my
to action?
my call to action was to hug my husband every morning,
Oh,
every night,
I'm so sorry that I almost spit when I remembered it.
and to increase my oxytocin. So that was my call to action. And the first few days, I was like, I gotta hug you. Where's my hug?
Did you say
And
that?
well, kind
Wait,
of. And
back
he's
up.
like,
Did you tell him what you were going to do?
I told him in the morning because when I was researching this, I'm like, oh, maybe this is why we're both wanting to eat all the time. We just need to hug each other. So he's like, that's a great idea. And he was all on
Good
board.
for him for being on board.
Yeah, because we're both trying to figure this out. It's such a terrible work in progress kind of feeling.
Right.
like once you think you figured it out and then there's a new issue.
Yeah.
So we did it the first few days and then we went out of town for a sudden thing we needed to do. I was with my daughter, so I did pet her dog a lot, so that
Oh my,
helped.
it does. I was petting my dog like a lot more this week.
Oh yeah.
And I just because of the podcast too. He's loving it,
Oh.
but it was because you said all, about that.
And then I came home and I got busy with my regular life and I forgot. And then he reminded me, he's like, "Oh, I'm supposed to hug you. Come on, where's my
Oh my
hug?"
God, that's cute.
It was sweet. Um,
Yeah.
but I was like, I have things to do. I have to go do
You're like,
stuff.
please don't hug me right now.
No, I couldn't. It was sweet though. It was very thoughtful.
Yeah.
But I think I just needed to do it really seriously to have it really have a scientific result, which I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So you started off good, but you don't have enough data.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna pay attention to that too. We used to do a group hug in the morning before we left.
Oh my
And
gosh,
it
that's
would
so
be either one of the
sweet.
kids would say group hug time, and then we'd all like group hug. And I'm trying to think if those days were better than the other ones. So I should pay attention to that.
I wonder if you can implement that and your kids would be like, "Oh yeah, let's do it," or if they would roll their eyes at you.
No, they would. I think we did it once this week. Randomly, if we're all around the same time in the kitchen in the morning before one of us leaves, someone will say it. But we're not all there at this, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, life has gotten too
So
busy.
it just has a lot to do with like where everybody is because if someone's in the
Mhm.
bathroom, we're not waiting. I mean, that sounds terrible,
Right.
but you can't, when everybody's trying to get ready for
Yeah.
work or whatever. But
Yep.
interesting though. I should try that too.
Yeah, but your dog's loving it. So even in the
Oh,
interim,
he's
that's
loving it.
great. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so overall though, I think you were very successful on your call to action.
Well, probably 50% because the
Yeah.
dog counts. I count the dog.
Listen, 50% is more than mine. I got 0%.
Yeah,
So,
but it's because it's not really a staple for you and
no.
it's not something you buy regularly. You would have to kind of go out of your way. You need to figure out which one to buy.
Well, here's my other question. I don't even know, does all these carry do they have lentils?
I'm
Because that's
pretty
typically
sure
where I
they do,
shop.
but I don't buy lentils from there, but I'm sure they do.
Where do you buy them from?
I buy them from the Indian grocery store.
Oh, okay. Is there a difference?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's just size of the bag and cost and
Okay. I just did maybe I,
you know what? I'll just bring you a baggie whenever I meet you next time and you
but
can
no, it
try
has to
them.
have instructions on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it can't just be like, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I'll get them. I just have to figure it out. Anyway, you want to jump into this week?
No, I have to tell you
Oh,
what I'm loving.
oh my gosh, I forgot about this. Okay, yes. What are you loving?
So I was really trying to think about some of the things that I use that are become essential for me. And this week, I realized one of the things, especially as the days are getting longer and the morning is starting earlier, and with the snow, it just seems really bright
Yeah.
outside. So I have become really reliant on my eye mask for sleeping. I think it's called a
Oh,
sleep mask. It helps me to fall asleep. It helps me to stay asleep because I am really sensitive to light and noise.
wait, does it stay on your face all night? Because you got me one and it falls off. I mean, it stays on and then I wake up with it off. Same as my hat when I wear my hat to bed.
Well, it's my head is very big, so
It's so
I've had
big.
to loosen it, and it does slide off a little bit. But by the morning, I think it's okay because I have to get up anyway.
Oh, okay, okay. So it helps you fall asleep?
It helps me like kind of fall asleep because I'm so sensitive to the light, and I'm sensitive to just oh, is it time to get up or is it, and it's only like 2 in the morning. So if it
Mm.
feels bright outside, my body, because it's a, what do you call that?
Oh,
Circadian
wait,
rhythm.
wait. So if you get up to go to the bathroom at like 2, you put it on.
No, no, no. It's already on my
Oh,
face. I just lift it. I don't turn any lights on. That doctor we interviewed about the sleep, she said, don't turn any lights on and just try to keep it as quiet as possible. So that's what I
I think
do.
of her every time I get up in the middle to go to the bathroom. I don't turn on a bright light.
Yeah. Yep.
I tried very hard to not, because I think it does make a difference.
Hmm. And I think there's a street light right in front of our house, so that sleep mask helps. And this is so silly, but our curtain rod fell, and we have a very high window in our bedroom. So we don't have
You have
we
to
just
put
have
it up.
blinds, and I don't have the capability. So it's bright in our bedroom.
Oh, well, I like this. You love your sleep mask.
I do. I think it's really helped me to stay asleep.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon, and you
Hmm.
can get whichever kind you like. And I have a satiny one, and I bought one for my travel bag, and I bought one for home.
That's a great idea to keep one in
Hmm.
a suitcase, because when you travel, you have no idea what the rooms are going to be like or
Yes,
where you're staying.
yes,
Now, that's a really good idea.
yeah. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm loving this week.
Okay. Gosh, what a great idea to keep one in your suitcase. Why didn't I ever think of that?
I don't know. It's like sometimes these simple things you're like, oh, I should have thought of that, but until someone tells you or you get the idea, you won't know.
Because I was just thinking, like, sometimes when we travel and we're all in the same room or whatever, it's like someone has the TV on and
Mm-hmm.
you're like annoyed by it, or they get up to
Mm-hmm.
go to the bathroom and it's the light goes on. Like, that's a great tip there.
And especially if you're traveling with your kids, you're all in the same room. They might be on their phones
Hmm.
or watching a movie or something. And then if you really want to go to sleep, you can just put your sleep mask on.
Great idea. I love it.
So now we can get into our
All
topic.
right. This is a deep topic.
It is a very deep topic.
And I didn't even know what the meaning was of it until I Googled it more.
Mhm. What definition did you find?
Well, so we're talking about generational trauma. Um, the definition actually gave me two words that I didn't know what they meant. So then I broke it down even more. So this was the definition. Intergenerational trauma has behavioral and epigenetic influence that can lead to increased obesity.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We need to break
Look
this
at your
down.
face. You were like, whoa, okay. So my first step was broke down intergenerational.
Hmm.
I kind of know what it meant, but I wanted to like dumb it
Sure.
down. So it's intergenerational means relating to several generations.
Right.
So we're
Okay.
not just talking about me and my mom and dad. We're
Hmm.
talking about my mom, like several of us. Okay. So then I did epigenetic. How do you
Hmm.
pronounce that?
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
Hmm.
Okay. Any process that alters the gene activity.
Hmm.
Am I right?
Hmm. That's also
Okay.
the definition I found. Study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work.
Yep. So it's deep. Automatically
It's
right
very
there. I was like, okay, this is going to get deep and scientific. And my brain doesn't work that way.
well. I think to
So,
really simplify where we're going with this,
yes,
I
tell me.
think we need to put a little outline ahead of us.
Okay.
Is we obviously we blame or like it's in our genes, it's in our blood for why we're either obese or why we have the habits that we have or why we eat the way we eat. We always blame our genes, but literally that's very true.
Hmm.
And what happens if we take specifically our dieting issue is we are influenced not only by the patterns we grow up with, but also the biology and the incidents that happen when we're in utero.
Hmm.
So it's so interesting once you start
It,
thinking about it.
also, the things that have happened when our parents were in utero as well is
Yes,
still in
yes,
us. So it's not
absolutely.
even like I kept going back to this topic and going, I don't feel like anything has happened to me that would cause
Hmm.
any kind of generational trauma, right? But it's so much deeper than that. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
I might not have had anything happen to me, but maybe my mom or dad did. And
Hmm.
that's now what I'm dealing with as well.
Right. On a sort of a high level, it's the things that I was reading was people who grew up in the Great Depression or even something as severe as a Holocaust or
Mhm.
any other of these incidents, they pass that traumatic rewriting of gene code onto their children.
Mhm.
So even generations after people are going to feel the effects of, say, living through the Great Depression and having
Mhm.
food scarcity, and it's care passed on through your genes, which I think
Mhm.
is why this is important for us to really talk about this.
Mhm. It's not I think a lot of times people look at obese people and they think, "Oh, they just need to stop eating," and that's not what it's about.
Right.
There's so much more. There's, like, gene activity in our body that has been altered from other
Right.
things, from something that may have happened 2 decades ago, 2
Absolutely.
what would it be? 2
2 generations ago.
generations, thank you, 2 generations ago, coming
Right.
down now.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
wanted to share this when I was researching this. I found this report of this study on the CDC website.
Okay.
It's just so interesting. Studies in the 1940s of the Dutch famine, so where there was food scarcity, children who were in utero during the famine and were born during the famine had much higher rates of obesity versus their siblings who were not born during that time. So if they were in their mother's womb while the food scarcity, while the famine was going on, their genetic code was rewritten. And I don't know the science of it. It's very deep and
Mhm.
complicated for me, but their genetic code was rewritten. So they're predisposed to obesity and heart disease and diabetes and all of these things that before they're even born, they're already kind of in trouble. So I was like, that's fascinating to me.
Okay, can I stop you right now for a second and go I know you don't like the word selfish, but can I talk about me for a second?
Of course, we love to
Okay,
hear
so
about you.
no, and that while you were just saying all that, and I was thinking about in utero and let me just use my 2 kids for example, and I've been
Sure.
open, they're open about it. They both see therapists for anxiety and not depression, but more like yeah, I guess you would say anxiety, depression, all of those things. And I was thinking about it and saying like it was like maybe me passing it down or my husband passing it down, but now I'm thinking about it and while I was pregnant with my son,
Mhm.
my husband was going through chemo and cancer treatments.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
sure I was extremely anxious and depressed and heightened with that while he was, you know what I mean?
Wow. I have
So
goosebumps
wait,
right now. Oh
so
my
wait, now let me tell
gosh.
you that when I was pregnant with my daughter, my dad was dying and he actually did die while I was pregnant. So again, I'm sure I was anxious and depressed and
Of
sad and
course.
all of those things during both of those times when both of my children were in utero. Now, I'm
Yes.
not saying that that's why they see therapists, but
Right.
it very well could be why their genetic code was rewritten in that. I mean, I did everything right. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I ate healthy as, I did
Mhm.
everything else right. But maybe there was just something that, I mean, that's beyond my control. I couldn't control either of those issues.
Absolutely.
But maybe on a I can't say the word, but on
Yeah.
that level,
Yeah.
that's what maybe caused some of that.
That
But I
those
mean, right?
that gives me goosebumps because the impact of conditions that were beyond your control impacted possibly how your children came out.
Right.
And that's something that really is beyond what they're in control of.
Mhm.
It's not in their scope to handle this because their genetic code may have been rewritten that
Right.
way.
Right.
That's why
So
I
it's
think they always emphasize that, a mom to be should be calm and stress free and eating good foods and not watch really violent shows. It's because it impacts the fetus in so many different ways.
wow. It's almost like if your parents are alive right now, we should be asking our mom, "Hey, what did you go through while you were
Hmm.
pregnant with me?"
Yes.
You
Yes.
know? And that
Yes.
could be why some of my behaviors are in place, or maybe some of my
Absolutely.
things that
Absolutely.
I have. I hate the word issues because I don't think they're issues. I think they're just part of who we are. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. Um,
But there's a reason for it.
yeah. I find this some of this deep diving I find very interesting because you start putting the pieces together of your own life of why am
Right.
I this way?
Right.
Um, if I think about, for me, is my mom's grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She, for whatever, I didn't know her very well because she was over there in India and I was over here. But whenever we would go out, there was always a lot of tension in the house for whatever reason. I mean, I was a kid, I didn't really understand. But the
Mm-hmm.
most fun I remember having with her was in the car eating food. We would take snacks with us and we would stop and get snacks on the road. And that was like a fun time. So that food in the car became associated with we're having fun and there's no drama right now. And it's just a good
Mm-hmm.
time. And I know it's sort of simplifying this topic, but if I think about how my mom is, she was always like, what's to eat in the car? And for many years, I was like, we need snacks in the car. So
I'm the same way. Yeah.
you carry these habits, patterns, training, whatever you want to call it, through to
Mm-hmm.
next generations. And I think I've stopped it a little bit, but my kids are like, I'm not hungry. Can you please stop asking me about snacks?
For them. But the reality is, and if you're being honest with yourself, you want the snacks.
I want the snacks because I think there's a memory associated with
Yes.
it. And it's that we just had fun in the car and there was no fighting and there was
Mm-hmm.
no stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like we were all just having a good time.
What a sweet memory, though. It really is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
I just have that memory with my grandmother that we just had the best time in that car, the
Oh.
best time. But I think some of these things are passed down, and there may
Mm-hmm.
have been a reason why she was the way she was. We just don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I can't talk to her because she's passed on, but it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Very.
So I was also reading the physiological effects of intergenerational trauma. This is a mouthful.
It's a very hard topic to talk, like the getting the words out.
Literally, we're yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So some of the symptoms could be chronic pain, illness, heart disease, diabetes, and other like
Mm-hmm.
health related issues.
Mm-hmm. Which we always hear that, like, I'm predisposed to high cholesterol because of this and that. Like, those are the things we hear that a lot. And it's one of those that we don't think about, though, the other parts, the other things, like the obesity
Yeah.
or like the
Yeah.
anxiety or like that kind of thing, you
You know,
know?
I was having this discussion with someone recently about if your genetics are such, why does it matter what you eat? Because if you're going to get diabetes, what's the difference?
Oh my God, who? No, don't tell me who, but I've had the same conversation with people.
So what I was saying was genetically, you're hardwired to possibly have situations like diabetes or heart disease or and high blood pressure, any of those medical conditions. How you live your life now and how you eat, how you nourish your body impacts what
Hmm.
happens next, whether you turn those switches on or not. That's why,
Hmm.
as a health coach, I'm promoting good, clean eating because maybe you don't have to get diabetes. Maybe you don't have to have high blood pressure. Maybe you can keep that switch off. So
Hmm.
the genetics, it matters, but it also matters what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've ever told you this quote because it's a hot button quote. And I've had people tell me they don't like it. I
Oh,
like it, but okay, so I'm just gonna say it. And if
okay.
somebody doesn't like it, write in and tell us that you can't stand it, and we'll maybe edit it someday. Um, it's I'm gonna get it wrong. Your genetics load the gun, but what you eat pulls the trigger.
Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right?
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
you really, yeah, this is how you're genetically made up, but you can do the work to correct it. Same with anxiety and depression. Like genetically, it's something there, but once you do talk to somebody and you do really work on it,
Right.
you can get the help you need to do it. And I feel like that's a lot of it is like getting to the root cause of a lot of these things.
Absolutely. That's why it's really important to even think about this and to even really understand why this could be a factor for you.
Hmm. And ask the deep questions, which you're really good at in our call to actions. You really will ask the questions that people go, I don't know. Why do I do that? Maybe that did happen to me, and it's really thought provoking, and until you can face it head on, it's like you can't even fix it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, this is another sort of definition I found. Our
Okay.
experiences alter our DNA that we pass on to the next generation and generations after that. Someone in your family, I cannot read my own handwriting. Why is that? Someone in your
Because you,
family.
while you're
Mhm.
deciphering that, I would like to tell everybody that you told me that you researched this topic and then you had to take a break
Oh, yeah, I did.
because it was too deep. So maybe this was your
Oh,
moment you took a
okay.
break.
Let me answer that, and then I will.
Okay.
But after I read this, someone
Okay.
in your family line lived through not having enough food, and your body will carry that trauma. When you're talking specifically about food scarcity, it's a thing that your body will carry through. So what
So
I will
even wait, so even if you're saying if I didn't feel experience food scarcity, and maybe my mom didn't even experience that, maybe her grandmother did, and that is now still being passed on through
yes.
me.
And one of the reasons why I'm going to find the exact explanation because it's like, whoa. Okay. From Psychology Today, it says all the eggs a woman will carry will form in her ovaries while she is a fetus in her mother's womb. This means that a part of you, your mother, and your grandmother all share the same biological environment. In a sense, you were exposed to the emotions and experiences of your grandmother even before you were conceived.
Oh my god, you just now I got the goosebumps. Yeah.
So what you were saying about, it's there even before basically you're born.
Mhm.
So I'll explain why I had to take a break and what
Okay.
happened.
All right.
So I was researching this. I not to be really frank, I was dreading researching this because
Oh,
I'm like, this is such a heavy topic. I don't know if I can talk about this. And I feel other people's pain even through written material.
okay.
And then I did a little bit of research and then I was like, I really need a break because I can't focus and I don't know which direction I'm going. So then I
Okay.
came back to it and I was like, well, I think it's better than I thought it was going to be because I just needed that break to really think about which direction, what I'm going to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you stopped because you didn't know you were kind of like, where do I even go with this
I felt a
topic?
little bit like I was drowning.
Okay. That's good. I felt when I was researching this, and this was before I just had the revelation about when I was pregnant with my kids.
Hmm.
Even before that, I was like, God, I've screwed up my kids already.
Oh gosh.
I know. And that was like exactly the last thing I wrote on my paper was I've already screwed up my kids when it comes to obesity or eating disorders or food problems. And I was like, oh, this, so it was made me very sad.
Well, you briefly told me about this, but I didn't want to ask too much because I like to
Yeah.
for us to have an organic conversation. But what specifically about
So
this?
I found going with the generational trauma and this whole topic and eating disorders, mothers' eating habits and children's attitudes towards food begins as young as toddlers.
Mm,
And they said the first question you should ask yourself is when is the first time in your life you remember counting points, counting calories, maybe somebody taking a diet pill or something along those lines. Because that right there is that beginning of not saying anybody I know has an eating disorder, but it can lead down that road
sure.
based on those. And I thought this was very sad. 1 in 5 children
One in
have
five.
1 in 5 show signs or have a full-fledged eating disorder.
Oh my gosh.
And it made me really sad because you guys, I started working for Weight Watchers when my son was 3. So ask him what time his first memory of counting points or
Hmm.
anything like that is, and he's gonna tell you his whole life.
Oh wow.
And I've never been like, "Oh, that's this many points," or "That's this," but it's always been part of his life and my daughter's life.
Right. It was just part of the regular
It was just
conversation.
part of our life. Like, just like my whole life was all what my dad did for a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So I've thoroughly messed up my children.
Oh no, 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 no. I don't believe that.
I
Yes,
know. But well, I mean, what I'm saying is I'm actually glad that I had this revelation now. Because now I can really pick up on the science and switch my conversations. Like there
absolutely.
doesn't need to be any conversations about that. And it's like
Yeah.
now I have to be aware of how I say things a little bit more carefully.
When I think I might have shared this story already, and I'm sorry if it's a repeat, but I think the point is really good. So I'm going to say it again anyway.
Okay.
When my kids were really little, especially my daughter, I used to chase her around with food to feed her. And I was at a play date and the lady said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm feeding her because this is what I know. This is what I've learned from my parents and their parents and
Mhm.
all of our community. This is how you feed a child. You just keep chasing them around and feeding them."
Mhm.
And she's like, "You shouldn't be doing that." And I said, "Well, what should I be doing then? Because I don't know anything different."
Right.
And she gave me this book, which sort of changed the way my kids grew up, which was a huge break from what I had known.
I have to
And
applaud you for asking, well, what should I do then? And like,
well, I
you
had really
know,
admired her and I looked up to her
okay.
because her kids seemed, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. Normal is not the word I was looking for, but they seemed like she just seemed so zen about everything. And I was like, I really want to be that zen, you know?
Oh.
But the trick is to create an environment at the dinner table that's really not about the food. And that it's like, how was your day? And what have you done? And if they don't want to eat, they get it to taste 2 times and then they move on. And there's
Mhm.
a whole like psychology to this. But I think in my house and the houses that I've known in our families, we spend a lot of time talking about food
Yep.
and it permeates everything that we do. What are we shopping and what are we making and what are we making for the weekend and what are we making for this party and what are we like? We're always talking about food.
Mhm.
So it to have that little bit of a break, I think it really impacted my children positively, which is where I was going with this is yeah,
Mhm.
I probably messed them up in so many different ways, but I think in this aspect, I did okay.
Good. Well,
We all
I
do our
yeah.
best.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's like horrible or any of that. It's just made me really realize that it I mean, I'm not it's probably happened to me and I'm
Mm.
now doing the same thing. And it's one of those things that you just have to be like, it's okay to break this pattern.
Well, until you know, what do you do
Right.
differently?
Well, I want to say I was one forever. I was like that mom that was like, I'm making one dinner, and if you eat it, you eat it. If you don't, you don't. And I
Mhm.
changed my parenting style on that
Really?
completely. Yeah. After listening to Corinne Crabtree, one of her episodes was all about like, why are we trying to force upon everybody the same food for this at the same night?
Mhm.
Isn't there a night when you don't want to eat something? And why are we forcing it? Like, and now we're just my daughter will be like, "I just really want an apple with peanut butter tonight." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's great."
Yeah.
So I feel like I really have tried to fix that part of it where it's
Mhm.
like, "No, you're eating this." Well, but I don't even like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's one thing to try it, but instead of being like, "Well,
Right.
then you're not getting anything else." What? Why?
Yeah, you definitely have to try it.
Yeah. But I feel like that's one of those things that, is a generational thing. Like, I can remember sitting at the table and my mom saying, "You gotta sit here until we eat, and I'm only making 1 dinner." And
Mhm.
guess what? Like, I don't think you should be doing that.
Yeah. I was reading about that about, we always hear you have to clean your plate. You can't get up until
Mhm.
you finish your food.
Yeah.
And that's one of those learned behaviors. Yes, some of it's genetic, some of it's learned. So, which piece of it can we fix is our environment now?
Interesting, because I wonder if a lot of it is more genetics in my family. Because maybe it goes back to that food scarcity.
Oh,
And that's why like, let me just back up, like, maybe and I don't know, I'm gonna have to do some research on my end, like, maybe the reason I had to sit at the table and eat whatever, or clean my plate, or eat so many bites before I got up, had to do with that food scarcity pattern being passed down to either my mom or my dad, passed down to their grandparents, and they were like
sure.
the same thing. When
Yeah,
guess what? There was no food scarcity when I was little, and there's no food scarcity for my kids.
right.
But it was that thing that we broke finally in my family, but it's there.
Yeah. Something I was reading about scarcity from kintherapyseattle.com. is that food scarcity is you eat really quickly because our body is physical memories of not having enough, of not knowing where the next meal will come from, or having competition with other people over who gets to eat which food and when.
Who gets to eat which food and when? Oh, and that is something that's passed down as well.
So, like, who gets the biggest piece and who gets the biggest portion? And if you
Mhm,
ever gave your kids anything, like, no, you gave him or her the biggest piece,
mhm.
and I wanted that. And a lot of that is written into our genetic code. So,
Interesting.
if your great grandparents had food scarcity, which you wouldn't probably even know now,
Right, right.
but if they had food scarcity, that genetic code gets written. And even now, we're like, no, that's my piece. No, I wanted to eat that. And then you like stuff your face because something has turned that on to say, oh, you're not going to have enough. You better eat it all quickly.
It's so I guess my question is like, let's say we're like this. Let's say we
Mhm.
know it. Do we do the research and figure out if that is what our great ancestors felt and then deal with it like that? Or how do we
Well,
work through it? You know
that's
what
a
I mean?
really good question. I was like, well, okay, if it's genetic and we're going to be struggling with this, how do we get over this? So
Right.
that was where I went next. Is that how do we get over generational trauma? And the first piece of this is something you already said, is you have to talk about it.
Mhm,
You have to talk about what happened. You have to hear the stories of, when I was growing up, this is what happened to me and this is what I went through. And once you start understanding where this is getting triggered from
mhm.
and it's out in the open and you've talked about it, you can really start understanding it.
I think talking about it sounds like it's the literally the number one way to get no, I don't know if the word is fix, but
It's
help.
not fixed, but I think,
Right.
a lot of trauma gets hidden and whatever that means. And I'm not a doctor or psychologist or psycho,
Yeah, we can't say words
whatever.
today.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm not anything like that. But if the more you talk about things, the less shame is attached, the less
Mhm,
fear, the less guilt. And it's easier to sort of put it where it belongs, which is in the past.
mhm,
The second thing is to work through trauma. So messages don't get carried forward. And that could be with a therapist, that could be with good friends, it could be with anybody that you've talked this through. Now, like to really sort of expunge it from your system, so to speak.
mhm.
So you can break the trauma passing forward to the next generation.
I also find that, like, what you're along the same lines you're saying is there's so much power in just acknowledging it.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even know if I mean, maybe if you don't wanna talk about it to anybody, a friend, or whatever, sometimes just journaling about it or acknowledging, "Wow, I
Yes,
finally see that this is what has happened," is really eye-opening, and it's really makes you go, "Okay, I'm normal then. This isn't
absolutely.
anything that I made up or it's part of who I am," and now it's like, "Okay, now I know it, now it's time to do the work on it."
Absolutely. Absolutely. Frida, a speech, you think it would be awful and hard, but it's so powerful to say it out loud, I think.
Mhm,
And the third thing is to cultivate a sense of empathy and compassion. So if our grandparents or grandparents, or if they're telling us a story, or even our parents, of something they went through, if we have empathy and compassion for that, it helps us to see the situation in a different
mm.
way than rather than with shame and guilt.
Say the beginning part of that sentence again. Empathy and compassion. If we no, you said if we
If we can understand somebody's story, like say, uh, my grandmother was sitting here
okay.
and I could really understand what her story was. And I could rid the shame and guilt that comes along with her story, then
Mhm,
I could be free of carrying that forward to the future generations.
mhm.
but I could also
I
probably break the pattern in my life currently.
right. And it sounds like you are, or you have, or you're working on it.
I'm working on it every day. And I think you are too. A lot of us are that I don't want to do the same thing that
Right.
my parents and the grandparents did, but I don't know that we knew any better. This is just
Right.
the what either our upbringing or genetics or whatever the word
Mm-hmm.
is. That's the way we were.
Mm-hmm.
And the final step is to create a new narrative, which is what exactly what we're talking about is if we say we got rid of the shame and the guilt associated with this, and this was an incident that happened. Suppose you lived through a famine, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it was traumatic, but if somebody shares the stories, then it releases its power over you and you can start creating a new story.
So let's go back to something that we can all relate to. A pandemic,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
we've all been lived through a pandemic.
Absolutely.
So now I don't not having any more kids, but are my kids when they have kids, that's like one of those like genetic generational traumas will be passed forward.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, but you know what? Their generation talks a lot more than we did.
Yeah, that's true.
And we talked a lot more than our parents did. So
Hmm.
I think they have the benefit of being open about things and hashing this out and not carrying it and storing it in their body. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that they obviously their genetic code gets rewritten a little bit, but maybe it
Hmm.
won't be as impactful. I think you're right on about the pandemic, though.
Hmm.
It's a really good example.
Yeah, and everybody dealt with it differently. Every family had a different story. Every family was impacted differently.
Yeah,
And that is something that is going to alter genetic codes going forward.
absolutely.
It's really interesting and super deep and scientific, the whole genetic code thing. I wish,
Yeah.
and maybe there is, but I wish there was a dumb it down book on how to explain it.
Yeah, I don't know. I keep
You know what I
reading
mean?
when I Google, keep finding studies and I'm like, I don't even understand the first paragraph.
Me too. I was doing the same thing. I was like, I don't get this one. I don't get this one. But it's a
Yeah,
good and it's interesting, but I can't talk about it because I don't understand it enough.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Super interesting topic though.
Yeah, but I think the silver lining of this whole thing for me is there is a way to change it
Hmm.
and to release the power that it has over you can alter your genetic code now carrying forward.
The one thing that I wrote down, because I told you I stopped after I realized that I was screwing up my kids, was cultivate mindfulness is a great way to get beyond it.
Oh, I like
Which is
this.
basically what you were saying, like creating that empathy and compassion. But I think that just being mindful of it is also
Hmm.
in your own way helpful.
Yeah. Wow. This turned out much better than I thought.
Oh, good. It did. It's deep. And I think that if you're listening, I'm sure there's going to be so many people that have really will be sitting here thinking, like, gosh, I wish I could ask my parents this or figure out, well, maybe
Sure.
that's why. Maybe when my mom was pregnant with me, this happened. Or, you know what
Hmm.
I mean?
And we didn't even touch on the topic of dieting trauma.
Yeah, a little bit
We
with,
didn't,
I'm
a
sure,
little
my
bit.
kids and my first memory of dieting and, you know,
Hmm.
but yeah, we really didn't. That's a
Yeah.
whole other topic, I think. Don't
Probably.
you?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to save that
Dieting
for another
trauma.
day.
Definitely will. All right. So are you going to have a call to action this week?
I do. Thanks to you helping me figure it out.
Okay.
Um, I was, I think for me, why sometimes I struggle with figuring out a call to action is there's so many things that I'm still working on that I don't feel like I've really done them. And I don't want it to be like a one off that I did it for 1 week and it was good and then I didn't do it. So I struggle sometimes with feeling like a failure, but I'm not. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh,
So
yeah.
this week, my call to action is I have 4 books on my nightstand and I really want to read them. Um, one is for pleasure, one is for informational. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes when I get
Okay.
into bed reading, and I'm not going to get on social media until I've done my 15 minutes. It's going to be my reward for reading.
Okay. Do you know that you inspired me a while ago, and I haven't talked about it because I didn't know if it was really becoming a habit or not.
Oh,
But I think it was a lot. I don't even know how many weeks ago. You said you weren't going to go on your phone first thing in the morning,
mm-hmm,
right? You said,
mm-hmm,
I'm not going to go on social media when I'm laying in bed. Because I
mm-hmm.
think you've said before that you sometimes lay there and just
Sure.
go
Oh,
on your
yeah.
phone and then you have a hard time getting out of bed, right?
Yeah.
So that got planted the seed. And then I listened to a podcast about like starting your morning on the right foot and all this. And we were talking about it on one of our call to actions again. And for about 2 weeks now, when I do not on Monday through Friday, I do not look at my phone or any social media or any emails or any of that while I'm in bed.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, in the morning. In the morning. I do not. And it is very hard. And there are many more moments when I'm like rolling over and I'm like, oh, let me check the weather today. And I'm like, no, I think, oh, I turned my phone. Sorry, guys. I can, there are many mornings that I will grab it and try and look at something. And I'm like, wait, I
Mhm.
can do that in a minute.
Yeah.
Because once you look at one thing on your phone, it
Oh,
sucks
yeah.
you in. The weather then gets me to go to the news station to see if that's right. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, no, 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 no.
Yes, I totally
So
agree.
you inspired that in me.
Oh, good.
So this time it's reading before you do it though.
Yes, I definitely, I really enjoy reading, but
Hmm.
this phone problem is, I don't know what the word is. Like, it's like
Well,
a,
I think what we're doing is we're cultivating the mindfulness of the phone problem.
yes.
So it's not even
Oh,
like we're ready
yes.
to fix it yet. Like we just know that it's there and we know that it's a problem and we have to slowly figure out ways to fix it. And I
Yes.
think that's what you're doing is like you're now being like aware, okay, I do have this problem. How can I work on it? You know what I
Oh my
mean?
gosh, you're brilliant. I love it.
I mean, I know I was brilliant, but I like it when people say it.
What is your call to action?
Well, I am gonna get the lentils. Like that is something that's gonna be on
Okay.
there. I don't really know if well, I guess it is a call to action. But what I really do want to do is I have an alarm set on my phone at 7 p.m. every day,
Hmm.
365 days a year that just kind of says like get ready for bed, go to bed, stop eating, like that. What I am going to start doing is using it as a cue to do some stretches because I do notice that I sleep way better when I stretch at night.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm really good at stretching at night in the summer.
Hmm.
I'm really good at it. But at night in the winter, I don't think I want to lay on the floor. It's cold.
Hmm.
I know that's a stupid reason to not do
No.
stretches, but I have noticed that like in the summer, I'm like, yeah, I'll lay on the floor and do my stretches. In the winter, I'm like, the floor's stupid
Didn't,
cold.
but didn't you tell me that there you can do stretches in your bed?
There are wait, yes, there are. And maybe I'll look at some of those. Maybe I'll look at some of those, but like I feel like I get a deeper stretch on the floor. But
Hmm.
maybe you're right. Maybe I just haven't tried them enough.
It is cold, but you need
It's
a cold
cold. My
mattress.
floor is cold. But again, like I don't know. I think that's what I want to do. Well, I know that's what I want to do because I do sleep better when I stretch my legs, especially.
Yes, I agree.
So let me write
Great
this
call to
down so I
action.
don't forget. Use my phone as a cue. All
I think
right.
that's a great call to action.
Well, you have a great week this week.
You too. We'll
All
see ya.
right. Bye.
Bye.